Here's an unpopular opinion. I actually really like New Year's resolutions. I actually like the idea of resolutions. Like, I like the idea of New Year. I like New Year's Eve itself, I can take or leave. Like, if I'm being invited somewhere to like a party, I like house parties for New Year's Eve, but our house isn't really the type of place where we can host one of those. So unless someone else is hosting, I tend to have quite chilled out New Year's Eves. But that's okay. Like, it's not as fun as a house party when everyone's all together and really gets into the swing of things. But I also like our chilled out New Year's Eves. Like, me and my family last year, because we couldn't really go anywhere, me and my family watched it on the TV together, and it was like a nice feeling of like a fresh start, because I think that's what the whole thing of New Year's is, like a fresh beginning and an opportunity to be a better version of yourself. But I like the idea of resolutions, not necessarily to better yourself, but almost like something to work towards, and it's like a nice starting point. I know it's like a bit of a cliche for people to start New Year's resolutions, which like, oh, work out more, go to the gym more, like really general ones, sort of. But at the same time, I'm like, that's not a bad thing, because what's wrong with having those goals? And even if it doesn't last for a long time, or it doesn't work out as you thought it would, you give it a shot. Like, I think that's pretty impressive when you kind of set yourself that goal, which sounds really cheesy, but I think it's like a nice idea and a nice concept to things. Yeah, that's how I'm feeling about that. I mean, in the past I've made resolutions, and some of them have been more successful than others. I made a New Year's resolution about, God, like 3 or 4 years ago, that I wasn't going to be jealous anymore, which sounds really big. That sounds like the most big, vague one out of all of them. Like, that trumps going to the gym or whatever like that. But in terms of like ambition, I'm not shaming people, by the way. If your New Year's resolution is go to the gym, then you go to the gym, girly. You get in that gym gear and have fun with it. Like, genuinely, that's not a bad New Year's resolution. I'm not shitting on anyone's New Year's resolutions here, especially when one of mine was like, be less jealous. But I had a year when I was just jealous of other people. I was jealous of other people's friendships. I was jealous of like if someone spent more time with someone else than me, and like it became really toxic to myself, because I stopped appreciating spending time with people, because I just compare my life to other people's. And I think jealousy is one of the most like toxic traits that you can have, and not even a trait, just a toxic emotion, and it's so unhealthy. And so after being like miserable, mostly by my own doing, by feeling jealous about things, after like a year of feeling that way, I was like, this is bullshit. Like, why am I doing this? And so my New Year's resolution was like, don't be jealous anymore. If something makes you jealous, like, tap in with yourself and be like, why am I jealous about this? Like, that's stupid. I should be happy that someone's having fun, they're having a good time, they're doing something fun. And I think it's one of those things, this kind of segues into like feeling excluded, when if you feel left out of something, 9 times out of 10, it's not someone sat down actively being like, let's not invite so-and-so for blank, blank, blank. Sometimes it's just genuinely you forget, or you want to see someone because you just do. Sometimes you want to spend time with a specific person, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so jealousy kind of tied into that, when I was like, I should just be grateful for what I've got and not compare it to what I could have or what I don't have, because, you know, you can always do that. You could have £1 million and then you'd compare yourself to the person who has £1 billion, and it's like you can never match things, and so it just becomes really unhealthy and toxic. So that's where I'm at with that. And it was actually quite a successful New Year's resolution. Like, it was a good one. Obviously I experience jealousy, but I don't let it kind of rule me as much, because whenever I feel that I am jealous about something, I kind of check in with myself and I'm like, no, we don't do that anymore, because it's pointless and it's wasting my time. My New Year's resolution last year was to be more on time. Here's a funny thing about me. I'm really organised. Everything in my room has a place. If it doesn't have a place, it doesn't need to exist. That's my kind of mindset with things. I have to-do lists to stay on top of. I've got a to-do list for today. I'm on holiday at home, and I made a to-do list for my day, and then I cross it out when I've done it, and it makes me feel really productive and good about myself. I have like 1 million academic diaries and journals. I have a calendar on, like, I like handwritten calendars, so I've always got a calendar and I cross out every single day. I've got like list upon list, and I'm very organised. I'm a very tidy person. However, when it comes to being on time somewhere, I'm just immediately like, I can't do it, and I don't know why. I can start getting ready half an hour early and I'm still late, and I always find myself rushing. It's always a stressful experience. I always leave it to the last minute. I don't know why I do it. I've tried to be more on time. I was going to set it as my New Year's resolution this year, but I just think realistically it's just going to be my flaw, my character flaw, and I'll always be late to things, and I can live with that. It's still annoying though, but that was my New Year's resolution last year, and so I think that kind of shows that sometimes resolutions can be hard to achieve or easy to achieve. And funny enough, the one that was more to do with me personally and my thoughts and my feelings was easier to achieve than something more physical of like actually being on time or keeping up with like a regimen of I must do this every day, every week, that type of thing. Sometimes those are a bit harder, but then for some people they like that structure and working that into your day. So I think it does depend on the person in terms of New Year's resolutions. All of this to say, I've made some resolutions this year, but this year I'm looking at my resolutions in the new year a little bit differently. Instead of looking at like resolutions necessarily, I've kind of more got goals or aims for the year that I'd like to achieve by the end of the year. It's almost like a to-do list for me for the year, like a miniature bucket list for the year. I think that's like a nice alternative approach, kind of, because like I said, I don't think I'm going to be on time anytime soon. So I don't really have any, I don't have to work on myself any more than that. Everything else about me is perfect. But one of my resolution goals kind of last year, which kind of came about, I don't even know if it was last year, maybe it was actually the year before. It came about a little bit later in the year. But it was to start getting into painting more and artwork a bit more. And so I've started doing watercolours. They started out pretty bad, and now I paint for fun. I got some lovely new watercolours for Christmas, and I'm painting Miles Morales at the moment in the famous scene when he's falling, as he's like just become Spider-Man. Spoilers, I guess. It's been out for a while. And it's like a nice thing that I do, and I feel like I'm good enough at it now that whenever I do it, I feel like I've achieved something. Like, it is a skill that you have to build on. This year's resolutions and resolution goals. First, I want to publish a book, which is a very big ambition. And obviously it depends on if I can even get it published. But the goal is to start the journey to try and pursue getting my book published. This video is very self-involved, by the way, I'm sorry. I wrote a whole book, basically. It's about a group of friends. It's a coming-of-age book. It's just nice. It just feels, like, safe to me, and I guess I kind of wrote it for myself because it's, like, it's set in Hull, where I'm from, and it's about a group of friends who, all of the people have kind of got combined elements of all my friends in it, and I can see parts of my friends in these characters, and I can see part of myself in a very specific character, and some of my experiences are in the book and all that type of stuff. And so it's like a nice little time capsule for me. So that's my first New Year's resolution, see if I can go into the process of publishing a book and continue writing my second book. My second New Year's resolution is I want to learn how to shuffle cards. Very simple thing, very easy thing, but I can't really shuffle cards well, and I'd love to be able to shuffle cards well. I just think it looks cool. It looks like a nice skill to have. I like the idea of it. So there's that. After 2020 and even 2021, like right now, I feel like we're back in the dog days a bit when all this new virus thing is in the background. And so I just feel like I don't want to be unappreciative of the little things. I know this is getting a bit cheesy and I'm sorry. But I think that's one of the nice things about New Year's. So I'm not against New Year's resolutions, and I don't dislike New Year's. I think it's a nice concept, and we shouldn't be too critical of New Year's or resolutions, or when people say that they have a resolution, even if that resolution you might think is like, well, that's going to last a week. The fact that it lasts a week is still really good. Like, that's not a bad thing. Things aren't good because they last a long time. They're good because they happen. So I think that's kind of where I stand on New Year's currently. That's my relationship with New Year's as of now. I think I've had a pretty good year this year. the virus aside, I got 4 A stars in my A levels, which I worked my little booty off to get. At one point I was working 2 jobs whilst I was doing my A levels, and I'm very impressed with myself for doing that. I had the balls to quit one of my jobs, which sounds really stupid, but I don't like disappointing people, and so I was proud of myself for doing that. I went on my first date ever. It was a big deal. Just little things like that. I turned 18, I started drinking more, which sounds bad, but for me, because I'm scared of being sick, it felt quite empowering in a cheesy way that I can now go out and drink and get, you know, have a good time and stuff like that without going home and being like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, am I gonna be sick? Like, I've started kind of going out more, and I've gone clubbing, and I went on holiday with my friends, and I spent a lot of time with my friends. I made some new friends. I went to university, I moved out, I started cooking nicer things, I started baking more, I've started painting better, I've started reading more, I've read a lot of books. Just little things like that when I'm like, you know what, it's been a pretty good year. I think in review, I can rest peacefully at the end of 2021 knowing that I had a pretty good run of it. So I hope everyone has a good new year, and I hope your resolutions or goals, if you make any, go well. I hope that they last a day at the least. And I think that we should stop shitting on New Year's and every aspect that comes with it. Apart from the New Year's kiss thing, I'm nearly done. I have a similar attitude towards New Year's kisses as I do Valentine's Day, which is, it's fun if you have someone you can kiss, but if you don't, you just feel like you're missing out on like a tradition. It's the same with mistletoe, and I know I'll feel different when I can partake in these traditions, but as of now I can't, and so you're kind of just like, I hate that this is like a thing that you're not quite ticking off, like on Sims when you host an event and there's like all these checklist things and you can't tick that one off. But that's just me being bitter. But yeah, so have a good New Year's. Have a good New Year's kiss if you get one, and don't get too drunk. Bye. Sunshine on my face, let's play with it all day, having fun times come my way.